What would you do if a student begged you to save him and everyone who could help told you to mind your own business? I was a new assistant teacher at a private elementary school when I noticed something on 8-year-old Henry, who always sat alone reading dinosaur books during recess. He was this quiet, sweet kid who never caused trouble. Henry had bruises on his arms that he'd quickly cover with his sleeves when he caught me looking. When I reported it to the principal, she said the Stewarts were loving parents and Henry was just clumsy. I started keeping Henry company during recess and discovered this quiet kid knew everything about dinosaurs and would light up when talking about them. After weeks of reading dinosaur books together, he finally trusted me enough to really talk. One day he was struggling to hold a pencil because his hand was so bruised, and when I gently asked what happened, he started crying silently. He made me promise not to tell anyone first, then whispered, "My dad squeezes my hands when I get math problems wrong." He immediately looked terrified and begged me to forget he said anything. I told him he could trust me, and over the next few days he slowly revealed more, always checking first that no one could hear us. He said his dad hurt him when his grades weren't perfect, but that no one would believe him because his family was too important. This sweet kid who got excited about velociraptors and drew me pictures of pterodactyls was being tortured at home. I took photos of his bruises and went to the principal with the evidence. She looked at them for 2 seconds and said, "Children bruise easily," and I was overstepping my position as an assistant teacher. Then she reminded me that the Stewart family had donated millions to the school, including the entire new science wing, and Mr. Stewart was on the board of trustees. She actually said, "We don't accuse our board members of child abuse based on a new teacher's assumptions." I went to Child Protective Services myself and filed a report. The caseworker who came to investigate was buddies with Mr. Stewart from the country club, and after a 5-minute conversation where Mr. Stewart charmed him completely, the case was closed. The caseworker told me making false reports was a crime, and I should be careful about my teaching career. Henry came to school the next day walking funny, and when I asked if he was okay, he whispered that his dad had spanked him with a belt for telling me. He said he was sorry for getting me in trouble and promised he wouldn't talk about it anymore. This 8-year-old was apologizing to me for his own abuse. I went to the school counselor thinking she'd be mandated to report it, but she said the Stewarts were excellent parents under a lot of stress from running their business empire. The head teacher pulled me aside and warned me that if I kept pushing this, the Stewarts would have me fired and make sure I never taught again anywhere in the state. But Henry had started bringing me his dinosaur books to hold for him because he said his dad threw them away when he was mad. He'd slip notes into the books that said things like, "It hurts today," or "I'm scared to go home." One day Henry came in with a black eye and the teacher told everyone he'd been hit by a baseball at practice, even though Henry didn't play baseball. When I tried to correct her, she gave me a look that said, "Shut up or you're gone." I called the police and they said without concrete evidence or Henry's parents admitting to abuse, their hands were tied. The officer actually laughed and said the Stewarts practically funded the police department's new equipment. Mrs. Stewart came to pick Henry up one day and pulled me aside with a smile that didn't read her eyes. She said she appreciated my concern for Henry, but that different families had different ways of disciplining children, and I shouldn't impose my values on them. She said her husband was a powerful man who didn't like people interfering in his family business, and it would be a shame if my career ended before it started. Henry heard her threatening me and later whispered, "I'm sorry my parents are mean to you too." I went to the superintendent and he said the same thing everyone else did, that the Stewarts were pillars of the community and I was a nobody making wild accusations. The nurse mentioned that Henry had been to her office with suspicious injuries dozens of times, but she was told to stop documenting them by administration. The PE teacher admitted he'd seen welts on Henry's back but was told by the principal that he'd misunderstood what he saw. Everyone knew Henry was being abused and everyone was protecting his abusers because they had money and power. Henry asked me one day if I thought God would be mad at him for wishing he could live with someone else, maybe someone who liked dinosaurs too. He said sometimes he dreamed about being a fossil so he wouldn't feel anything anymore. This brilliant, gentle child who should have been worried about spelling tests was contemplating death, and everyone who was supposed to protect him cared more about donations than his life. I knew I was risking my career and possibly my freedom, but I couldn't let Henry down. I had one chance to get proof that even the Stewarts couldn't make disappear. What I did next would either save Henry or destroy me completely. Full story on the channel below.